Hi, I'm John Liu, TSN Montreal Bureau reporter covering all things Canadiens and Alouettes. And normally, I'd have one of these with me, but today, I'm on the line with David Stein.
Hi, I'm Matthew Darge. Before I played for the Montreal Canadiens, I played for the McGill Redmen. You're watching David Stein, the best sports reporter at McGill University.
Hello and welcome. I'm your host, David Stein. Today we have a very special guest on the line. Joining me today is John Liu from TSN. Thanks for coming on the line, John.
Thanks for having me here, David.
John, there are a lot of people, sports fans, who wish they could get paid to watch sports. How did you get to where you are today?
Well, I know this is only like a 10-minute segment, David, so I'm going to have to give you the very abbreviated version. But basically, after I graduated from university, which was, I won't tell you what year because that's really going to date me, but I studied economics and worked in the insurance and banking industry for 11 years before deciding that just wasn't my thing. I had always loved writing. I always used to be a sports fan when I was a kid growing up, collecting cards, putting them in the bicycle spokes, and just basically being a fan of hockey, baseball, football, and so I mean that was always in my blood. And so when the time came that I decided to quit the bank and go back to school, I decided to study journalism, and I always enjoyed performing, and thought, well, what's the best way to combine the two passions, performing and a straight job, writing. And so I decided on television journalism, and at first I had focused on news because there are more opportunities in the news side, even though sports has been a passion my whole life. But in my second year of journalism school in Winnipeg, I applied for an internship at TSN in Toronto. Had the good fortune of being awarded the internship, and before I went to Toronto, I auditioned for and was given a part-time job at CTV Winnipeg doing reporting over the Christmas and New Year's break of 1999 heading into 2000. And so actually I had a job with a station that I was hoping that I would get to work with once I graduated. So I thought I was in pretty good shape already, but then TSN awarded me the internship and I went out to Toronto, did my 3-week stint in Toronto as one of the editorial assistants on the row when you watch Sports Center. The guys in the background who were watching TV, that was me. And so at the end of my internship, I left a demo tape with one of the producers, and more just for the purpose of keeping in touch. Not really applying for a job, and just hoping that some time down the line, after I presumably was an experienced reporter, I'd get an opportunity with TSN. But one thing led to another. I guess it was a slow day at the office, and the recruiting officer looked at the tape, liked it, shot it up to the VP of programming, watched it, liked it, and asked, who is this guy and where do we find him? And the recruiting officer said, well, he's downstairs in the newsroom. So it's one thing led to another, and I was given the opportunity to audition for a reporting job. Got sent to the Air Canada Centre the next day to do a little Raptors story. Went back to the station, did the story, did an audition on the anchor's desk, and I'd never done any anchoring whatsoever. At my college, we had museum piece equipment, so we really didn't have anything resembling what you would consider true television studio equipment. And so I went through the audition. I think bombed miserably, but they still liked they liked the way that I presented, the way I wrote, enough to give me the opportunity. So Vice President of Programming, who watched my tape, called me upstairs and blew my mind by telling me that he would like to hire me for TSN and work in Toronto. And that was over 13 and a half years ago, and I spent my first 7.5 years in Toronto, and now I've been in Montreal for just over 6.
Do you have a favorite part of the job?
Watching sports.
Silly question, right?
Yeah. It's just the everyday. Well, watching is. I mean, that's one part of it. That's game days. But I go to a lot of practices. I go to a lot of press conferences. And don't get me wrong. Like, not everything is exhilarating and stimulating. Like any job, any profession. It's you have some dog days as well. But the fundamentals of my job are just so enjoyable, because of the medium in which it's based. That's it's the toy store amongst the media. We call it the toy store. Sports is the toy store.
Do you have a least favorite part about the job?
The waiting around,
Okay.
the hurry up and wait. We do an awful lot of waiting.
John, you're probably one of the best dressed guys, in my opinion, on TV.
Thank you.
How do you choose what to wear to a shoot? So you got the bow tie on today.
Yes, only because you asked for it. So, yeah, I know. It's happy to fulfill that request. But basically, I govern what I wear by the shoot. For instance, a hockey game day, it's going to be suit and tie, jacket and tie, or bow tie. We're right close to Molson Stadium, and so on a football game, depending on the weather, might go a little more casual, wear something that's a little bit more outdoor oriented. But it's governed really by the shoot itself. But as far as my tastes are concerned, it's just something that I've always loved style and fashion and sharp clothes, and so it's something that I've always taken great care in this profession, but even in my previous career too. So this is actually nothing new.
I was wondering if we could just switch gears a little bit now to
Sure.
maybe the Montreal Canadiens. I know it's a hot topic in this city.
Of course, always
Always is.
12 months a year.
Absolutely, 365 days a year.
You got it.
So PK Subban won the Norris Trophy last year. Everyone knows that. And this year he's on fire, and he's has 10 points in the first 7 games, leading the team in scoring. At what point do you start negotiations with this guy, and what are the chances he's not here next year?
I don't foresee any scenario under which Marc Bergevin would even consider trading PK Subban. And prior to the season, Bergevin indicated a willingness to start negotiating. I mean, he did it with Bouillon and Desharnais last year, right? So there is precedent for him not waiting until the off season to open up discussions or to put them off until that time, like leave them as back burner issues. It seems that Bergevin is willing to talk, but he did say that it takes two to tango, and so obviously that would require agreement on Don Meehan and PK's part to open up discussions. To start the groundwork. If it hasn't already begun and we're unaware of it,
right.
That it would commence some point through the season. But the fact is that, first of all, Norris Trophy win.
Yeah.
If PK makes Team Canada, that's a little bit more ammunition on his part. You mentioned the point production already. If they add more penalty killing to his duties and it increases his ice time that much more, these are all obviously points that are going to work in his favor. All signs are pointing toward PK absolutely breaking the bank. I'm thinking maximum term, 8 years. Whether he gets maximum money or not, we'll see. But the fact is that both parties want to come to an agreement. PK grew up a Montreal Canadiens fan. He wants to be here.
Yes.
Marc Bergevin and the Canadiens want PK here as well. So there's a happy medium there. There is a solution. It's just a question of where or when. I am not at all concerned about the possibility of PK walking or an offer sheet coming his way, or the Canadiens considering trading him. I don't believe any of those things will happen, and I would not be at all surprised if the two sides come to some agreements about opening up discussions during the regular season. But to be honest with you, if that were to happen,
yeah.
I don't think it will happen until after the Olympics, and that's if PK makes Team Canada, right? Because I don't think there's any point. I don't think there's anything to be gained by PK's camp to say, let's start laying the groundwork now, when they don't know. If he goes to Sochi and has a tremendous Olympics, again, there's that much more ammunition on their sides.
That's it. I mean, at the time when they signed up to that 2-year deal, like right now he's a bargain, but it's in the long run they should have locked him up then and there.
Well, and the thing too is that you raise an issue that's that basically it's that PK played ball with the Canadiens, right? He did what they wanted. I wouldn't say I can't say what's in his head. So, but if I was the player, I wouldn't have been entirely happy with saying I wanted to go here. You guys wanted me to go here, and so we're kind of over here. Yeah. I came more towards your camp to strike a deal. But having said that, the Canadiens had set a precedent with Pacioretty, with Price, with these bridge deals. Other teams around the league are doing it as well. So, I mean, that's the reality. But having said that, PK did give a little bit in that regard. So now I believe the Canadiens will they'll reward him, and his play is certainly backing it up. And he's becoming, if not one of, certainly the elite defenseman in the NHL. And the trophy shows it, and his play is certainly warranting those accolades at this point.
He will break the bank, and I think he's going to be worth every single penny that he's going to get.
And he's a superstar. Montreal Canadiens fans have not had a bona fide superstar, especially at the defensive position, probably not since Chris Chelios was in his he was in his prime with Chicago and Detroit, but I mean the signs that he showed when he was here, just the tantalizing mix of all those skills and abilities. We haven't seen anybody like Chelios, or PK is somebody that we haven't seen since Chelios was a Montreal Canadien.
Another core piece of the puzzle for the Montreal Canadiens, of course, is the goalie, Carey Price. I mean, he's had his ups and downs, definitely, as a Montreal Canadien so far in his career. What does he have to do personally this year for this year to be considered a success for Carey Price?
Go 2 rounds deep in the playoffs. Ideally for him and the Canadiens, win that second round, whether they get to a conference final or not. Price has said repeatedly that the greatest measure of success for him is surpassing where he's maxed out in his career thus far.
Right.
And the farthest he and the Canadiens have gotten is the second round, and that was in his rookie season. So, exactly. So for him, the greatest measure of success and what he's basing success upon is just how far he and his team go in the playoffs. But having said that, that's the end result for the in-between, for 82 games and 7-8 months. For him, I believe success is going to be measured by obviously individual wins, but just the way his style evolves and shapes within the individual games as he and Stephane Waite build towards what will be the optimum version of Carey Price. And you know what, even in the preseason, we saw signs of what Stephane Waite was trying to teach him, that it was coming incrementally through the preseason, and then this last road trip where he was stellar in Vancouver and in Winnipeg. These are all very positive indicators about what Carey will be at his absolute best. And this is still not his absolute best. His absolute best will be him being able to play at that level for stretches of 10, 12 starts in a row. Well, if not necessarily in a row, but in chunks, right? And when we see the ups and downs factored in, the lows aren't too high, and the ups are what we saw in Vancouver and Winnipeg.
Yeah, I guess that's what I would say has been his problem, has been the consistency, right?
Absolutely, and he's admitted that too. Consistency, right? Consistency, and we've seen that's his style. There were elements that needed tidying up, and so far Stephane Waite's been doing a tremendous job with them in that regard.
Awesome. We hope he has a tremendous season, of course. Brian Gionta has been the captain for this is his 4th season wearing the C. It's final year of the contract. Obviously, people are going to start bringing up the question about the captaincy. If he's no longer a Hab at this time next year, who do you think is the best fit in the locker room right now?
Josh Georges. Yeah, you don't even have to finish the question. I mean, Josh Georges is he spent the bulk of his career here. Josh Georges is one of the most upstanding and forthright athletes that I've ever had the pleasure of dealing with. A true team guy, character guy, cares deeply about his teammates, about the team's success, about the city of Montreal, about the fans here, and really, he's tremendous with the media too, and that's a selfish agenda on our part. But you know what? A captain is a figurehead and a conduit from between the team and the fans. So I mean, if a captain is expected to speak all the time, well, that individual has to be comfortable with it, right?
Right.
With those duties, and so yeah, in that regard, Josh who was tremendous with the media, would be great in that role as well. But for all the reasons that I listed prior to that, yeah, I would say that if Brian Gionta does not come back after at the conclusion of this season, then I would imagine Josh Georges will be at the top of the list, and it would not surprise me if he is the guy that succeeds Gionta.
I definitely don't disagree with you, but my next question, I guess, would be, is Josh Georges, is he able to contribute enough to the team? I know he's not like really necessarily a top 3 or 4 defenseman. He's not so offensive. Is that an issue?
No,
as your
and
captain?
it shouldn't be. Well, think of the Tampa Bay Lightning. They once had Tim Taylor as their captain, right? When you think of the Tampa Bay Lightning in that era, who would you have thought of first?
Vinny Lecavalier.
Right. Vinny Lecavalier, Martin St. Louis, Dan Boyle,
Right.
A host of other players. Your best player, your biggest star, doesn't have to be your captain. And I love the way Alex Ovechkin plays, but I don't think he's the best choice for captain for the Washington Capitals. So in that regard, a player like Georges, who's a gamer, who is inspirational to his teammates, who's respected by his teammates, even though he's not
Flashy.
he's not flashy, he's not a point-producing defenseman or a forward. He's the type of guy that's, when your captain has to be a leader.
Absolutely.
That's the most important aspect of the job. And in that regard, there are a few guys in the dressing room who are as solid a leader as Josh Georges. So, and that's just more fuel to the fire. I have more to support my case, and so yeah, we can have this conversation. I guess fall of next year, September next year. We'll see if Brian Gionta doesn't come back.
Right.
We can revisit the topic.
Absolutely, I'd love that. Anyway, on that note, this has been a hell of an experience for me, having a chance to interview someone who I really look up to in the industry, and I hope and I aspire to be like you one day. I want to thank you for coming on the show, and I'd love to do this again at one point.
Well, thank you for having me, David. Much appreciated. Okay. Thanks.